So after doing the video on Corepunk, I've been thinking about MMOs quite a while, and the MMOs I've been playing. So I thought I'd talk a bit about my experience with MMOs. So first, I've played a bunch of different MMOs. Obviously, I used to play World of Warcraft for a while. I also played Guild Wars 2 for a while, and then the lastest MMO was mostly the Elder Scrolls Online. But today I wanted to focus specifically on one of the first games and one of the first MMOs as well that I ever played, and that was pretty much one of my first actual games that I played more consistently. I think before that I used to just roam around the internet and playing some just random flash games or like small games. I never really played games more consistently, and this was one of the first games that I actually did that. And the game I wanted to talk about today is Flyff, like a pretty old I'm not sure if it's Korean or if it's Japanese MMORPG with a kind of anime style. And that was one of the first MMORPG that I played for a decent amount of time. And I specifically wanted to, and there's actually many things about that MMO that I still really like, and I still look back at every once in a while. Because it was one of the first, meaning that it was also quite original in certain things, and it had many aspects of it that I really like, and I'm surprised that a lot of newer games never go that way, or have not taken those ideas back. So one of the first things that I really like about this game is the fact that you don't actually start your character with a class. So in current MMOs and in most MMOs, you start the game and you choose a class when creating a character, right? And that's going to slightly restrict the different, well, not restrict, but it's going to give you a certain type of ability, certain type of character. And in games like World of Warcraft and others, you're also going to restrict the type of player that you're going to be. Meaning you're going to be more of a DPS type class, or it's going to be more of a tank, or usually you can have multiple, right? Tank or DPS, or like healer, DPS, and so on. But this game, compared to all of those, actually allowed you. Well, it wouldn't allow you. You would just start as a vagabond, and it would have pretty much nothing. I think it would just have like a main weapon. I'm not sure if you had a shield. I think you didn't have a shield. It was just a main weapon, and that was it. And you would have to just start playing the game, leveling up. And I think it was level 12. Once you reached level 12, you had the choice at that point to actually choose a class. And the way you would get that class is you would get to a different trainer, depending on the class you wanted to do. And you would do a special quest that would give you that class. And I've always really liked that idea. I'm really surprised now the game has ever gone that way. It has many advantages, like apart from having that extra gameplay idea of choosing a class later on and having that kind of transition quest line. It also allows new players to not have to do the tough choice of the class early on, like as soon as you start playing, right? Like a new player will start the game, and while leveling up to that level 12, he will already interact with different people and the different classes and see them in action. And that allows the player to make a better decision of what they want to do. Of course, so that then you have the class, and then everything else was somewhat similar. The other interesting thing is once you got to level, I think 60, you could choose a subclass afterwards, which I think it's quite interesting as well. But I think other games have done that too. But yeah, like I've always thought that was quite interesting, and I'm surprised that no game have done it again. Now, a second thing that I've always liked, and that is not that specific to MMOs, was the fact that whenever you leveled up, you were given, I believe, 2 stat points, and you could place them in whatever attribute you wanted. And basically, there was no restriction into where you would place your attribute points. And at least back then when I used to play, I remember feeling like you could really to some extent become OP on one attribute if you just went all in it, because I feel like most games nowadays prevent you from placing all your points in one attribute, rather like either by simply not allowing you to do so, or by decreasing the effect of an attribute point past a certain point, or like reducing it over time. Like the more you have, the less a point is going to impact. But this game, it didn't seem like it did. And I remember like being able to really like boost my attack speed like crazy, and it felt super satisfying and quite fun to do. And that's something again that is not specific to MMOs, and I would love if more games would actually allow you to do that. Of course, in multiplayer games, you do need some type of balance. Of course, the balance can come simply with the fact that if you put all your points in attack speed, then you won't actually have any health at all, right? So then you would be like a one hit, but you are a big damage dealer, at least as long as no one's touching you, right? So like the balance could come that way, but it might become maybe too strong for PvE. So I understand when multiplayer games do these kind of restrictions, but single player games, like, why? It's always fun to have a very OP character. So I really like that from that game. Then it had something that, well, all the games have it as well, but it was, I think, one of the first time I kind of experienced that feeling, and kind of the birth of my love for that kind of mechanics as well. It had flying mounts. Simple as that. Once you got to level 20 or level 22, I think, you could buy for quite expensive a flying mount. And by mount, it was either a broomstick or a hoverboard. And then that's it. It was also the simplest mechanic, as in you just press space and you start accelerating and it would just go in a straight line. So nothing crazy. But it was that mix with the music that started when you started flying was an awesome feeling. And I remember in that game when we got the mounts for the first time. So the world of Flyff is divided into different islands. One of my first thoughts was, I'm going to try to fly to the other island. And it seemed very far away, like from one of the coast to the one coast to the other. I'm not sure if you could even see the other island, but you could see it in the map overall. And my intuitive thought was that you won't be able to, right? There's going to be an actual invisible wall and you won't be able to. And to my surprise, you were actually able to do so. Like the whole map was actually one world and you could just travel everywhere. And that was one of the best feelings ever. Okay. So another thing I wanted to talk about is actually the main reason why, when thinking about core punk, I remembered Flyff, which is that Flyff also had a somewhat similar PK system, player killer system, like core punk does. So the way that it worked in Flyff is you basically, at any point, any time, you could control click any other player and you would start attacking him. So you were not restricted in any way. You could at any point just start attacking a random player. And you didn't have there wasn't any benefit to doing so, but player would still do it simply because, well, it's usually fun to attack other players. And the way it would work is, if you attack the player, you would become, if you attacked and killed the player, you would become a player killer and your name would appear in red. And from there, any other player could attack you without getting the player killer status, right? And they would, really be able to. And then it has another addition, which is you would become, to some extent, wanted. Not that it would appear anywhere, but it would mean that you couldn't go back to town because the guards would attack you again as well. So it was kind of fun. And if you did die, then you would spawn in a different location than the normal spawn location, which was where all the player kills would spawn. And you would keep the status for a while. So the only way you could like lose the status would simply be to just fly away and then just wait until the status would go down. And then the fun thing about it was that there was no benefit from doing it at all, yet people would still do it. It was actually very risky, because once you become a player killer, and if you get killed, you had a decently high chance of actually losing an item, and losing an important item as well. Like, it could be an equipment item or your mount or something. So it would be actually very risky, yet a lot of people would do it, and it would create a lot of times this kind of like war between player killers and normal players in that player killer spawn. And it was super fun. And I got reminded of it when thinking about Core Punk, because Core Punk seems to go a similar way. The difference with Core Punk is, although it seems to have the same negative effects or the same risks of becoming a criminal in Core Punk, but there is still an advantage of doing it. There is a benefit from it. You gain these honor points, and then you can actually buy stuff with those honor points, which can be very strong items. So I'm still surprised. It is a fun, interesting thing how, even though there was no benefit and a big risk, people would still do it. And that was like fun memory. I had fun memories with that, even though I did lose some important items that then I had to grind for them again. So yeah. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about, that game, I don't remember if it had crafting. I don't think it had. It had some weird crafting where you could improve weapons, I think, but I don't think you could create weapons. But one thing you could do is you could, by killing monster or by buying it, you can loot some elemental cards, and then you could actually improve your weapons with that element. I think maybe the armors as well, I'm not sure. And the way it would work is you would just click on the item, improve your weapon, and then you would get a +1 fire element to some extent, and then you would be locked into fire. You wouldn't be able to change it to water or to something else. But you would have, whenever you would do that increase, whenever you would apply that element, you had a chance of actually breaking the weapon. But you could continue increasing the weapon, so you could always add a second card. So we could add a second fire element. Again, you would be locked into one element. You couldn't mix elements. And then if you added the second one, your weapon would be even stronger. So it had that really fun feeling of risk reward if you could just keep upgrading it. And of course you had the chance of actually breaking the weapon would increase. But it was a very fun feeling, a very fun feeling of just trying to get a better weapon and get the best weapon ever. You try it. And I really, really like that. And then I think there was a mechanic to actually not prevent but reduce the chance of breaking the weapon, so you could get even stronger weapons. And that, although it was quite simple, I really like that mechanic. And I'm pretty sure, I mean, I'm not aware of every other game, but I haven't really seen it in any game. I do know the Elder Scrolls Online has, if you want to upgrade the rarity, has somewhat of a similar system, which is quite good. Which I do like it as well. It's a bit too resource expensive maybe, but it is quite fun. And I mean, again, I do have like fond memories of this game, but the game itself was not that good. Like, it lacked quests. It had almost no quests, not that many dungeons or anything. You would spend most of your time just grinding against basic mobs, and then leveling up a bit and going to the next mob, and so on. So the game, of course, was not perfect, and you would end up getting tired. I mean, I basically stopped playing because at some point it would take so much grinding just to level up once. But I still have a lot of really fun memories of it, and again, from what I've been saying now, I do have like a lot of memories of mechanics of that game that I really enjoy and I still think of today. So that was today's video. Guess a bit different than most, but I don't know, I really wanted to talk about this game. And yeah, I mean, I mentioned it with the flying mounts, but yeah, the music is still something I listen to, and now the music from that game is actually quite good. So yeah, well, that was it for me today. Hope you liked it, and see you next time.
I'm gonna tell you a little story about a boy named Joe.